take a moment to focus on a tiny dot almost lost in the vastness of the Pacific Ocean on the map. That is Nauru, the country we will explore in this video. It is the smallest island nation in the world by area and ranks third globally in terms of territorial size. With an area of only about 21 square kilometers, it is entirely understandable that many people have never heard of Nauru. In fact, you could drive around the entire country in just about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on your speed. Nauru's population currently fluctuates between 10,000 and 14,000 people, depending on various statistical periods. The country does not have an official capital, but Yaren District is considered the administrative center. Here, you will find the parliament, the only airport, government headquarters, a police station, and most of the important agencies of the nation. What makes Nauru frequently mentioned is not its size, but the stark contrasts in its developmental history. At one point, Nauru was regarded as the richest country in the world in terms of GDP per capita, with the standard of living for its citizens being about 4 times higher than that of Americans. In stark contrast to that past, Nauru today often appears in the media due to severe obesity rates, an overwhelmed healthcare system, a collapsing economy, and a heavily damaged environment. To understand how a country can go from the heights of prosperity to crisis, we need to start with the natural conditions it inherited. Geographically, Nauru can be considered the most isolated country in the world. The nearest neighboring country is over 300 kilometers away. The closest major city is Brisbane, Australia, located about 3,000 kilometers away. If one wishes to reach the United States, the distance from Nauru to Honolulu is also around 4,000 kilometers. You don't need to memorize these exact figures. Just understand that Nauru is not located near any major trade routes or air traffic corridors. As a result, the entire island nation has only one airport, which also serves as its international airport. According to the International Civil Aviation Organization, there are only about 3 to 4 commercial flights to Nauru each week. If you miss a flight, passengers may have to wait several days or even close to a week for the next one. Sea transport is also not feasible. Nauru's coastline is surrounded by dense coral reefs, preventing large ships from docking directly. For this reason, the country has virtually no proper seaport. This transportation isolation directly impacts the daily lives of Nauruans. Most essentials, from food and fuel to building materials and medical supplies, must be imported by air. With an unstable supply schedule and high transportation costs, the cost of living on the island is significantly inflated. At times, a bag of grapes weighing less than 1 kilogram can sell for about $14 in Nauru, nearly 5 times the common price in the United States. For centuries, this isolation allowed Nauru to exist as a closed, self-sufficient society. However, when drawn into the global economy, its remote location became a critical vulnerability, leaving the nation with few options to cope during crises. So, would you believe that a country with only a few flights each week was once considered a dream destination for the world? Perhaps that only exists in the most absurd scenarios. Every year, the number of tourists visiting this country hovers around 200 people. On global statistics, this is nearly the lowest figure. However, from the perspective of the Nauru government, these assessments are still overly optimistic. In reality, the actual number of visitors is significantly lower. There are periods lasting several months when the number of people visiting the island can be counted on a few fingers. The main reason for this is the cost of travel. Round-trip airfare to Nauru typically ranges from $2,000 to $3,000, depending on when the tickets are booked. This price is comparable to business class fares on long-haul flights, such as from the UK to New York. However, the experience is entirely different. Many passengers describe the flight as feeling like it was designed for a very small group. Statistics show that flights to Nauru often have about 75% of their seats empty. Additionally, many first-time visitors witness planes circling in the air, waiting for the runway to clear for cars and motorcycles to pass. Due to the country's limited size, the airport is located close to residential areas, and the runway also serves as a main thoroughfare. Another factor that deters tourists is that Nauru has virtually no real tourism industry. There are no resorts on the island, nightlife is very sparse, and organized tours are almost non-existent. The accommodation options are extremely limited, primarily consisting of guest houses or small hotels with service quality equivalent to or lower than a one-star hotel. Most of these facilities were built to serve foreign experts, international organization staff, or short-term workers. As a result, tourists have little to no options for relaxation or entertainment. Frankly speaking, if you have booked a ticket to Nauru, you may have just spent a large sum of money to lie on the sand, sleep outdoors, and fish to pass the time. So, before becoming a nearly forgotten destination, what was Nauru like? And what drew the world's attention to such a small nation? The most significant turning point in Nauru's history occurred in the early 20th century when geologists discovered a massive layer of phosphate just beneath the surface of the island. This discovery completely reversed the fate of a nation that had previously been almost isolated and largely unnoticed by the world. What makes the phosphate source in Nauru particularly special is its origin. This mineral layer was formed from seabird guano that accumulated over hundreds, even thousands of years. Due to its unique geographical conditions, the phosphate here is of very high purity and lies close to the surface, making extraction easy and cost-effective. At that time, phosphate played a strategic role in global agriculture as it is a core component of fertilizers, directly influencing crop yields. As the world's population rapidly increased and food demand soared, phosphate became a form of white gold that many countries had to rely on. This resource brought Nauru into the global spotlight and ushered in an unprecedented era of prosperity. While today, the per capita GDP of developed countries like the United Kingdom or Canada hovers around $50,000, Nauru reached a comparable standard of living as early as the 1970s. The lives of its people became so lavish that it was hard to believe, with stories of cash being spent extravagantly just for entertainment. According to economist Helen Hughes, during this period, Nauru was considered the richest country in the world, an economic paradise that even people in the United States and Europe admired. So what caused this paradise to collapse? What missteps led Nauru from the heights of prosperity to the state of decline it faces today? When the cash flow from phosphate began to pour into the budget, Nauru quickly established a social welfare system that to this day remains almost impossible for any other nation to replicate. The first area to benefit was healthcare. The state covered all costs for medical examinations and treatments for its citizens. Even in cases of severe illness requiring treatment in the United States, individuals only had to cover their travel expenses, while the government paid for all medical costs. This generous policy was similarly applied to education. Not stopping there, the people of Nauru also received housing support. Many households were subsidized to build or maintain their homes with little financial burden. Accompanying this were a series of other living allowances, making the state's role almost all-encompassing in daily life. What is most astonishing is that all these benefits were maintained without collecting any form of tax. Every citizen was completely exempt from tax obligations. The state apparatus operated almost entirely based on revenue from phosphate, rather than direct contributions from society. In comparison, even historical monarchs would find it difficult to achieve this standard of living. Islamic kings had to cross deserts on camels, while Napoleon and European monarchs rode horses through forests and plains. The people of Nauru, however, still rode, but in Ferraris. When they grew bored, they switched to Lamborghinis. Replacing a luxury car was as simple for them as changing clothes. With high incomes and no taxes, the concept of luxury was nearly non-existent in the lives of Nauruans during that period. However, this wealth did not come without a cost. Behind the enormous cash flow from phosphate was a decades-long process of rampant extraction that left severe damage to the island's natural environment. The mining began by stripping away the entire layer of topsoil, the only soil capable of retaining water and nurturing crops. Once this layer was removed, the island's natural ability to recover was nearly lost. The land became unarable and could not be regenerated in a short time. Simultaneously, the tropical forests in the inland areas were almost completely devastated. The forests, which once played a crucial role in climate regulation and soil protection, were cut down to facilitate mining. As a result, much of Nauru's interior gradually transformed into a rugged limestone landscape, filled with sharp rock formations and deep pits. If you have ever seen images of the moon's surface in documentaries or science fiction films, that is the closest reflection of what remains in Nauru today. The prolonged extraction of phosphate over many years, without any accompanying rehabilitation plans, has left a heavy toll on the people of Nauru today. The most visible consequence is that over 80% of the island nation's land has become uninhabitable. Much of the territory is unsuitable for agriculture, construction, or resettlement. The population has been forced to concentrate along a narrow coastal strip, while the inland areas have been abandoned as worthless land. When the topsoil was completely destroyed, the groundwater system could no longer be naturally replenished, leading to a severe shortage of fresh water. Nauru lacks rivers, streams, or sufficiently large natural lakes to meet long-term living needs. Experts have estimated that if the islanders had to fend for themselves entirely, they would struggle to survive for more than a week due to the lack of a stable water source. In reality, the fact that the people of Nauru still have access to water today is primarily thanks to a desalination plant built with support from Australia. However, this solution also carries significant risks. A notable example occurred in 1998 when the plant experienced a serious malfunction, taking up to 3 years to fully repair. During that period, Nauru faced a deep crisis, with unprecedented riots erupting as people resorted to violence just to secure drinking water. The situation was only gradually brought under control after Australia, the United States, and the United Nations intervened, providing emergency fresh water and calling for support from the international community. Global climate change continues to exacerbate Nauru's circumstances. Rising sea levels are directly threatening the coastal land where most of the island's population resides. With the inland areas rendered unusable, the pressure for survival increasingly falls on the coastal regions. As the ecosystem collapses, the economy cannot escape the consequences. So how has Nauru's economy declined? Let's continue to explore. After decades of relentless exploitation, Nauru's phosphate reserves began to decline significantly in the 1990s. The resource that once brought a sense of endless wealth could no longer sustain the income levels of the past. The core issue was that Nauru had not prepared an alternative economic plan. Throughout its prosperous period, the national economy was almost entirely dependent on phosphate. There were no other manufacturing sectors invested in concurrently, nor was there a long-term strategy to cope with the prospect of dwindling resources. As phosphate ceased to generate a stable cash flow, Nauru quickly fell into a comprehensive crisis. The revenue that once sustained the entire state apparatus nearly vanished, while public spending continued to be maintained according to the old model. The gap between income and expenditure widened rapidly in a very short time. I say very short because less than 2 years later, the country officially declared bankruptcy. From a position of absolute trust in natural resources, Nauru shifted to a state of near total dependence on external support. International aid, financial agreements, and temporary revenue sources gradually became the only path for the state to continue to exist. To reduce dependence on external sources, the government of Nauru was compelled to seek new directions to salvage the national economy. However, the policies implemented subsequently faced intense controversy within the international community, even leading to the complete severance of aid to the country. The most controversial approach was the offshore tax haven model. Under this model, Nauru allowed the establishment of banks and the registration of financial activities with extremely lax regulations and low levels of oversight. The goal was to attract international capital flows without significant investment in infrastructure or human resources. However, this policy quickly turned Nauru into an ideal destination for money laundering and other illegal financial activities. Many criminal organizations exploited the weak control systems to transfer and conceal illicit funds. At one point, as many as 400 shell banks were registered in Nauru within just 3 months. As a consequence, the United States cut off all aid and urged the intergovernmental organization FATF, part of the G7, to isolate Nauru from the international financial system. When the offshore banking model was no longer accepted and faced increasing external pressure, Nauru was forced to abandon this path. With almost no options left, the government turned to seek direct cooperation with Australia, the country with the greatest influence over Nauru in terms of both economy and security. From there, another controversial policy was implemented. Under a bilateral agreement, asylum seekers attempting to reach Australia by boat would be sent to Nauru and detained in isolated facilities on the island. In return, Nauru received financial resources to maintain state operations. According to BBC reporters, these facilities were often described as outdoor prisons, located in isolation, heavily controlled, and almost completely disconnected from the normal lives of the island's residents. The living conditions within the detention camps quickly became a focal point of global criticism. Numerous reports indicated that the living environment there was inhumane, characterized by overcrowding, a hot climate, inadequate medical services, and prolonged psychological pressure. The indefinite detention of individuals who had not committed any crimes severely deteriorated their mental health. This is also why the image of Nauru today is often associated with controversies surrounding human rights and immigration policies. Domestically, the existence of these detention camps has also created social tensions. On one hand, they provide a significant source of revenue for the national budget. On the other hand, the camps place immense pressure on the island's already limited infrastructure, from healthcare and security to community life, increasing feelings of instability. Despite facing strong criticism, experts estimate that the agreement with Australia could contribute over 10% of Nauru's GDP, making it difficult for the country to immediately terminate this policy. A notable paradox is that despite a poorly managed economy and an average GDP currently at a modest level, Nauru is recorded as the country with the highest obesity rate in the world. So, how severe is this situation? And how does the average weight of a Nauruan compare to that of an American? One of the most noticeable and serious consequences currently facing Nauru is a public health crisis, with obesity at its core. According to recent statistics, about 80% of the island nation's population is classified as overweight or obese, making it one of the highest rates in the world. This phenomenon is not limited to a specific age group or gender, but is widespread across the entire social structure. Accompanying obesity is an alarming rate of diabetes. Approximately 40% of Nauru's population has been diagnosed with diabetes, primarily type 2 diabetes. For a country with a very small population, this figure is particularly serious. Additionally, cardiovascular diseases are prevalent and have become one of the leading causes of death. The prolonged state of obesity, combined with diabetes and a sedentary lifestyle, has made cardiovascular issues a heavy burden on the island's already limited healthcare system. The direct consequence is that the average life expectancy of the people of Nauru is low compared to global standards. Many individuals live with chronic illnesses for extended periods, severely diminishing their quality of daily life. This combination of factors indicates that Nauru is facing a systemic health crisis. This is not merely a story of individual choices or isolated lifestyle habits, but rather the result of deep-seated changes in the environment, economy, and social structure that have accumulated over decades. So what has led a nation that was once the richest in the world to become the focus of attention due to widespread weight gain? Let's continue to explore. To understand why Nauru is currently facing a severe health crisis, we need to look back at the period when the country experienced rapid wealth accumulation due to phosphate revenues. During the prosperous years, processed foods were imported in large quantities to Nauru. Canned meats, frozen foods, and products high in sugar and fat gradually became popular choices due to their long shelf life, convenience in transportation, and suitability for an island that had lost its agricultural production capabilities. With money no longer a concern, these foods quickly took center stage in daily meals, completely replacing traditional eating habits. Alongside this process, local foods gradually disappeared from everyday life. Fresh fish, coconuts, tubers, and vegetables, which were once the foundation of the previous diet, no longer played a dominant role. This shift did not stem from a rejection by the people, but rather from the rapid changes in their living environment and consumption habits. In the context of a suddenly affluent society, obesity was once viewed as a sign of status and prosperity. A large physique was associated with wealth, the ability to access imported foods, and a life free from hard labor. This perception led to weight gain not being seen as a health issue, but rather as a positive attribute for an extended period. At the same time, there was a significant lack of nutritional knowledge, as the education and healthcare systems struggled to keep pace with the rapid societal changes. The population was not adequately equipped with an understanding of the long-term effects of a diet high in sugar and fat, along with a sedentary lifestyle. The consequences only began to surface years later, as chronic diseases started to spread within the community. Even though the people of Nauru have become aware of the health risks, they have not been able to improve the situation. Or more accurately, they lack the capacity to change. So what are the real barriers preventing them from accessing a healthier lifestyle? One of the most significant barriers preventing Nauru from improving public health is the issue of land. After decades of intensive phosphate mining, approximately 80% of the island's area has completely lost its agricultural viability. Most of the inland area has been stripped of its topsoil, transforming into a rugged, sharp limestone surface. Under these conditions, growing vegetables, fruit trees, or any type of staple crops is nearly impossible. Nauru no longer has sufficient arable land to develop agriculture and provide fresh food for its residents. The direct consequence is that all fresh food must be imported from outside. Vegetables, fruits, and fresh products must travel long distances to reach the island, relying entirely on erratic shipping schedules and high logistics costs. This results in the price of fresh food in Nauru remaining extremely high. Basic vegetables such as lettuce, tomatoes, and cucumbers cost several times more than their prices in Australia or the United States, making them luxury items for many families. Accessing a healthy diet thus becomes not a matter of choice, but a question of affordability. In this context, people continue to rely on cheap, easily accessible, and storable foods, primarily processed items high in sugar and fat. Although awareness of health has changed over time, the actual conditions make it incredibly difficult to adjust eating habits. This vicious cycle shows that the health crisis in Nauru is not solely a result of individual awareness or willpower, but a direct consequence of the living environment and economic structure. When the material foundation does not allow for better choices, health issues continue to be passed down from generation to generation. With such large individuals, many might think that Nauru could build a Hulk-like army to protect the country. But once again, that exists only in the most absurd of imaginations. Nauru is one of the very few countries in the world that does not possess an independent military force. The nation does not maintain an army, navy, or air force in any form. Consequently, the protection of its territory does not rely on internal defense capabilities, but is entirely dependent on external agreements. In practice, Nauru's national security is closely tied to Australia through practical agreements that are not clearly institutionalized. Australia plays the role of providing external security for Nauru, including the ability to intervene in the event of external threats. This relationship reflects a clear dependency, stemming from Nauru's isolated geographical position and its severe resource limitations. Domestically, the task of maintaining order is assigned to the local police force. However, this force is very small, consisting of only a few dozen personnel for the entire island nation, which severely limits its ability to maintain security. The shortage of personnel is compounded by a lack of funding, outdated equipment, and low response capacity, especially when faced with complex or prolonged situations. As a result, internal security in Nauru is not always stable. Social issues arising from a weakened economy, along with the presence of refugee detention centers, have placed additional pressure on an already thin and easily overwhelmed security system. Dependence on Australia in the field of defense also means that Nauru's sovereignty is limited to a certain extent. Although it is a legally independent nation, Nauru's ability to make decisions on strategic security matters is not entirely in its own hands, especially when the security interests of a major partner are directly involved. Nauru is one of the very few countries in the world that does not possess an independent military force. The nation does not maintain an army, navy, or air force under any model. Consequently, the protection of its territory does not rely on its own defense capabilities. Instead, Nauru's national security depends almost entirely on Australia through practical agreements that are not clearly institutionalized. Australia takes on the role of external security protector for Nauru, including intervention in the event of external threats. This relationship reflects a clear dependency, stemming from Nauru's isolated position and severe resource limitations. Domestically, the responsibility for maintaining order falls to the local police force. However, this force is very small and frequently faces budget constraints. Its equipment, personnel, and response capabilities are limited, especially when dealing with complex or prolonged situations. For this reason, maintaining internal security in Nauru does not always proceed smoothly. Social issues arising in the context of a weakened economy, combined with the presence of refugee detention centers, have placed additional pressure on an already fragile security system. The reliance on Australia in the defense sector also brings certain limitations on sovereignty. Although recognized as an independent nation, Nauru does not fully exercise self-determination in strategic security matters, particularly when the interests of larger partners are directly involved. Yeren is the most suitable place to begin understanding how Nauru operates, as most administrative activities and transportation connections are concentrated here. This area is located along the southwestern coast of the island, with relatively flat terrain that facilitates the placement of the international airport and government agencies. Nauru Airport is very close to the sea, and the runway runs parallel to the coastal road, making flight schedules directly impact daily life. Whenever a flight takes off or lands, certain sections of the road must be temporarily closed, clearly reflecting the limited infrastructure and how this island nation adapts to its practical conditions. Command Ridge is the highest point in Nauru, located at the northern edge of the formerly mined inland area. Although it stands at only about 71 meters, this location is sufficient to observe nearly the entire outline of the island. During World War II, the Japanese military built bunkers and artillery positions here to control the airspace and surrounding sea routes. These structures still exist today, without restoration or detailed informational signage. Access is relatively simple via dirt paths, but the surrounding area clearly shows the aftermath of phosphate mining, with rugged terrain that is nearly unusable for large-scale production or construction. Mokwa well, located in the southeast of the island, is a natural brackish water well formed in a coastal limestone cave. Unlike Buada, Mokwa is not a regular source of drinking water, but primarily serves as a backup during periods of scarcity. The descent into the well is narrow and steep, requiring navigation over a slippery rock surface, making it unsuitable for large groups. Nevertheless, Mokwa holds significant geological value, clearly demonstrating the process of seawater permeating through the island's limestone structure. Along the northern and northeastern coastlines, many bunkers, gun emplacements, and tunnels built by the Japanese military during the occupation still remain. There are no clear boundaries between the historical sites and residential areas, as many structures are located just behind homes or close to the coastal road. Some bunkers are utilized by locals for storage, while others are completely abandoned. The coexistence of war remnants with contemporary life illustrates how Nauru allows history to blend into everyday living spaces. For those interested in military history, this serves as a direct, unembellished source of information that accurately reflects the scale of a small front in a global context. Although it does not develop tourism in the conventional sense, Nauru still offers a certain value to a very small group of travelers who do not prioritize comfort or services, but rather seek unique sensations and rare experiences. The first factor comes from the sea and the coral reefs. Due to the almost non-existent cruise ships and very few tourism activities, the waters surrounding Nauru remain largely untouched. The coral reef system encircling the island not only protects the coastline but also serves as the foundation for the local marine ecosystem. Thanks to these conditions, Nauru is suitable for activities such as snorkeling or underwater nature observation. With no crowded diving spots or organized tours, the experiences here are highly private and less interfered with, standing in stark contrast to many popular diving destinations in the Pacific region. In addition to nature, the remnants of the phosphate mining industry add another layer of value. Old mines, abandoned railways, and rusting machinery are scattered across the island, serving as direct evidence of a period of wealth and decline. Although not designated as tourist attractions, these spaces hold special significance for those interested in resource history and environmental impact. Another noteworthy aspect is the local way of life. With its small area and close-knit community, visitors have the opportunity to observe the daily activities of the people in a natural context, free from staging or catering to mass tourism. Finally, there is the human factor. The people of Nauru are generally friendly and open to outsiders. In a country with few visitors, the presence of tourists is often met with curiosity and goodwill, rather than distance or commercialism. These elements make Nauru unsuitable for the majority, yet it possesses a unique allure for those seeking an authentic experience that has not been predefined. Next, let's take a look at some notable places for travelers when visiting Nauru. Although canned food is quite common in modern life, it would be unfair to say that Nauruan cuisine lacks noteworthy aspects. In reality, the cuisine of this island nation clearly reflects the survival conditions of a small community in the Pacific, where the sea and nature play a central role. Grilled fish in coconut sauce is the most representative traditional dish of this style. Fresh fish caught the same day is simply prepared, and then grilled directly over hot coals or wrapped in banana leaves to retain moisture. When the fish is nearly cooked, coconut milk is drizzled over the surface, creating a fragrant blend of smoky aroma and a hint of creaminess. The fish is tender and sweet, requiring little additional seasoning, showcasing the simple yet flavor-focused eating habits of the Nauruan people. This dish often appears at family meals or during gatherings with close friends. Additionally, coconut rice serves as a staple in many daily meals. The rice is cooked entirely with coconut milk instead of regular water, with just the right amount of salt to adjust the flavor. When done, the rice grains are off-white, soft, and emit a subtle coconut aroma. The moderate creaminess makes it easy to pair with grilled fish, dried fish, or various types of smoked meats. For the locals, coconut rice is not just about filling the stomach, but also embodies the concept of abundance in daily life. Moreover, smoked meat served with coconut clearly illustrates the traditional food preservation methods of Nauru. Pork or bird meat is cut into large pieces and then hung to smoke for an extended period to prolong its shelf life. When served, the meat is sliced thin, with a distinct smoky aroma, a light saltiness, and a slightly chewy texture. Fresh coconut served alongside helps balance the flavors and reduces dryness. This dish is commonly enjoyed in family meals, eaten directly by hand, creating a warm and intimate atmosphere characteristic of island life. Sun-dried fish is the result of adapting to the sunny and windy natural conditions. After being cleaned, the fish is lightly salted and then sun-dried for several days. The final product has a distinctive dried fish aroma, a rich but not overpowering saltiness, and a chewy texture that becomes sweeter the more it is chewed. Dried fish can be grilled again or lightly fried, served with coconut rice to create a balanced flavor profile. This is a familiar staple, helping the locals maintain a food supply when fishing becomes challenging. In addition to its landscapes and daily life, Nauru also boasts several unique festivals that vividly reflect the history and community spirit of this island nation. Nauru's Independence Day is celebrated on January 31 each year, marking the moment the country officially became a sovereign nation in 1968. This event holds great significance, linked to the process of ending external governance and affirming national identity. On this holiday, people gather in public areas to participate in flag-raising ceremonies, parades, and traditional performances. Indigenous dances, folk music, and community sports activities create a lively and cohesive atmosphere. Independence Day is not only a historical commemoration, but also helps the younger generation gain a deeper understanding of the country's formation, thereby reinforcing the awareness of cultural and traditional preservation. While Independence Day emphasizes national sovereignty, Angum Day carries a deeper meaning regarding the existence of the Nauruan community itself. This festival takes place on October 26 and is associated with the time when the indigenous population began to recover after a severe decline that once threatened its very existence. The term Angum in the local language implies survival and rebirth. On this day, people engage in activities that commemorate history, perform traditional dances, and listen to memorial speeches. The atmosphere of Angum Day is often more reflective and profound, focusing on human values, solidarity, and the will to survive of a small community amidst the vast ocean. Originating from the religious life of the island, Gospel Day is a festival that marks the introduction of Christianity to Nauru and holds an important place in the spiritual culture of the nation. The festival showcases the blending of faith and indigenous traditions. On this day, churches organize parades, choir performances, sacred plays, and various community activities. The music and rituals are deeply rooted in Nauruan identity, both solemn and intimate. Gospel Day not only carries religious significance but also contributes to moral education, guides lifestyle choices, and strengthens the bonds within Nauru's society. The story of Nauru begins with nearly the entire economy being reliant on a single resource. For decades, phosphate not only generated income but also dominated the entire social structure, from the national budget to the daily lives and consumption habits of the people. This dependency has led to distinctly short-term decision-making in Nauru's development. When cash flow was strong, society prioritized expanding welfare, improving living standards, and meeting immediate needs, while economic diversification or future preparedness was not given the proper attention. In a nation that became wealthy too quickly, the concept of long-term risk was almost entirely overlooked. The most visible consequence has emerged in the natural environment. Resource extraction occurred rampantly without any accompanying conservation or restoration strategies, leading to severe degradation of much of the island's land. As the land could no longer sustain human life or support production, a cascade of other problems began to arise. Alongside the environmental issues, the economic and social foundations of Nauru have also gradually weakened. As phosphate revenues dwindled, the country lacked an alternative economic sector capable of sustaining it. The welfare system collapsed, public health declined, and society fell into a prolonged state of stagnation, struggling to find a way out in the short term. From a small island nation in the Pacific, Nauru has become a cautionary tale. This story illustrates the price paid when development relies entirely on resources, when immediate benefits overshadow sustainable thinking, and when the environment is treated as a negotiable factor. Although the scale may differ, the lessons from Nauru are not solely applicable to small nations. If you plan to visit Nauru for a short time or stay for an extended period, understanding the cost of living is an essential preparation step. With its isolated location in the Pacific and almost complete dependence on imported goods, prices in Nauru are significantly higher than what the island's size and living conditions might suggest. Regarding accommodation, the rental market on the island is quite small and primarily concentrated around residential areas with basic infrastructure. A house or small apartment suitable for one person typically costs between $900 and $1,200 per month if located in a convenient area. If you are willing to live further away or share space with others, costs can drop to around $700 to $900. However, due to limited supply, rental prices in Nauru tend to fluctuate and are not stable over time. The transportation system on the island is relatively simple, as Nauru has only one road that runs around the coastline. Personal vehicles are the most common mode of transport. Foreigners often choose to rent cars for travel, with an average cost of about $50 to $70 per day. Since fuel must be entirely imported, high gasoline prices can quickly increase travel costs if used frequently. Food expenses are significant for most residents of Nauru. The majority of food is imported, leading to high prices and limited options. If you cook for yourself and buy groceries from local stores, the cost for about 30 days typically ranges from $300 to $400. Eating out is not a common choice due to the limited number of restaurants and high prices. A simple meal usually costs between $12 and $18, while more substantial meals or Western-style dishes can reach $25 to $35. Utility costs are also high. Electricity and water, for a single person living independently, typically amount to around $80 to $120 per billing cycle. Internet in Nauru is both expensive and limited in speed and capacity, with common costs ranging from $90 to $130 for a basic package. Overall, to maintain a basic and relatively stable lifestyle in Nauru, a single person should budget around $1,800 to $2,000 for 30 days of living expenses. If you spend conservatively and limit service usage, this figure could be slightly lower. Conversely, with frequent travel and regular dining out, total expenses could easily exceed $2,200. After exploring life in Nauru, you surely understand why this country is dubbed the most obese and least visited island in the world. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our future journeys together. What fact impressed you the most? Please leave a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. The information is for reference only, so please do your own research before making any decisions.